Every so often, I'll read a visual novel that completely catches me off guard. I'll go in with a certain set of expectations only for them to be proven completely wrong. The two examples I always give are Nekopada, which surprised me with a fun and wholesome story, and Katawa Shoujo, which was originally described to me as the cripple dating sim made by 4chan. But as of today, there's another title that's been added to the list, one that every single one of you watching this video should read. I'm talking about Dra Koi. But real quick, if you think I'm doing a good job, like and subscribe for the algorithm, join Twitter and Discord linked below, and check out Patreon if you want to support the channel further and get a few nice bonuses such as your name in videos and early access to future content. Alright, enough of that. All I really knew about Dra Koi going in was that it's a romance, it's very short, and it came with glowing recommendations. But here's the thing. Romance stories often suffer from rushed pacing, and I was basically thinking, how good can a 3-hour love story really be? There's just not enough time. Well, this video is basically me eating my words. This visual novel is phenomenal, and I'm gonna tell you why. Now, since I'm guessing that most of you watching haven't read it, and I think the blind experience is especially valuable here, this video will be spoiler-free. Basically, this video is a sales pitch. I want you to read it, and my goal will be to convince you. Dra Koi is very short. I was able to get all endings in under 3 hours, so this is a visual novel you can complete in a single afternoon. The story is set in a near-future setting where the world has settled into a reality where dragons just occasionally appear and fuck shit up until humanity inevitably subdues them. The plot revolves around our protagonist as he encounters the current dragon in human form while she takes a particular interest in him. As you might imagine, things get a bit complicated from there. But before I continue on about plot, I do need to touch on the technical stuff you'll need to work around if you plan on reading it for yourself. Which you should. Dra Koi is a Japanese visual novel from 2006, which means it's got its fair share of jank on modern Western systems. As is common with visual novels from that time period, it requires your system locale to be set to Japanese, and unfortunately a locale emulator will not work unless you want to read the VN with no music or CGs. Also, if you attempt to load a save from the main menu, it'll crash and you'll have to use the L key instead. And I experienced frequent crashes at first, though I fixed it by pressing start, immediately saving, and then reloading that save. Aside from those 3 issues, everything worked fine for me. So let's get into the visual novel itself. Now here's the thing about short visual novels like this. The soundtracks are usually nothing special. I don't mean that to be an insult, but it's the truth. Most of the time, it's simply not worth putting in the same level of money and effort into a 3-hour story that you would a full-length visual novel, and something functional and generic is usually enough. But I have to say, Dra Koi's soundtrack is fucking phenomenal. You've got soft rock, a calming lullaby-esque song, a Celtic-inspired song, rhythmic chanting, J-rock, a rap rock fusion song, and even a Japanese punk song. My favorite songs are Certain Dragon, which I unfortunately can't play in this video thanks to Content ID, and I know I'm gonna mispronounce this, To Aroru no Kami no Uta. The tracks are all on YouTube and I'd highly recommend checking them out. So now let's talk about the actual writing. Dra Koi is not the most standard of stories. There's a bit more to it than just a love story or just a story about humanity fighting dragons. In fact, if I had to draw comparisons, I'd say it reminds me most of the movie Stranger Than Fiction. Dra Koi is a story about stories and the beauty and deeper meaning that can be found within them, which is basically what Stranger Than Fiction is. Though where they differ is that while Stranger Than Fiction looks at realistic fiction and tragedy, Dra Koi discusses epics, myths, and legend. It's abundantly clear to me that even aside from the explicit parallels that are drawn within the visual novel, this story is written by a fan of classic epic literature. If you're even remotely well-read, you'll notice a lot of references to European literature and mythology, including, but not even remotely limited to, the Norse story of Sigurd and Fafnir, the story of Achilles, Beowulf, and Jabberwocky. And the way it ties them all into this story of the protagonist and his romance with the villainous dragon and draws out a level of depth that the narrative alone would never be able to do is absolutely fascinating. I unfortunately can't go into any details without spoilers, but I have to at least try to explain how great this is. I'm going to be talking about other elements to the story, but I need you to understand something. Dra Koi is a story about stories and what they represent. If you ignore that subtext, you're going to miss out on a lot of what makes this visual novel great. And as much as I do like the characters, the humor, and the setting, they aren't the takeaway. So let's talk about the protagonist. One of the interesting quirks about Dra Koi is that none of the characters are ever actually named. So if you're wondering why I didn't introduce anyone yet, that's why. Our protagonist is a student, and the funny thing about him is he's kind of a cynical asshole. Whatever the situation, it just kinda tends to piss him off more than anything. But here's the thing, he's endearing. Even when he's being a dick, it never comes off as overly malicious. And when it comes down to it, he'll do the right thing and show that he actually does care about the people around him. Like, there's one scene where the dragon is injured, and even though he has absolutely no practical reason to, he gets her to safety before soldiers show up to finish her off. It would have been so easy to just leave her, but he actually does have some feels deep down. Wait a minute, I think he's a fucking tsundere. Now this is interesting. So for those of you who don't know, the tsundere is one of the more recognizable character archetypes that you'll see in anime and other Japanese media. It's a character who holds romantic feelings for another but tries to hide that fact through a facade of disdain. So a tsundere might do something nice for their love interest but then immediately justify it with, "It's not because I like you or anything." But here's the thing, the tsundere is almost always a woman. It is exceptionally rare, at least comparatively, to see the tsundere archetype applied to a man. And it's an interesting perspective that we just don't see very often. And looking back, it's interesting to see how I viewed the protagonist differently from a female tsundere purely due to the fact that he's a dude. Like, all the hallmarks are there. Genuine feelings underneath an air of cynicism with a bit of endearing snark. When he tells the dragon that she should unalive herself multiple times, that's basically his version of baka. But I found myself kind of less willing to give him the benefit of the doubt on his more assholey parts, even though I did still like him overall. With a typical female tsundere, I'd have more immediately latched onto the idea of, oh yeah, there's some sort of underlying insecurity there, even though I'm not really a fan of tsunderes. But I think there's also the fact that typically, the tsundere archetype is not seen in a main character, but the love interest, and being able to actually see the tsundere from their own point of view adds another layer of interesting to the conversation. We actually get to see the tsundere's thought process from a first-person perspective, and it was really neat to listen in on the internal monologue and see how the protagonist was actually justifying his small acts of caring and kindness. Like at one point he expressed that he was maybe kinda sorta a tiny bit worried about the creature that lives with him. That creature being his mother. Or how he pisses and moans during the H scenes and has an internal struggle where on the one hand he wants to be angry, but on the other hand he's actually enjoying having sex with a cute dragon. He's a very fun protagonist, and the whole fuck this shit attitude added a nice bit of humor to many of the scenes while also serving as a really neat contrast to the overarching themes of the story, which as I mentioned earlier is a love letter to European folklore and legend. I mean, you'd expect him to be all charming and chivalrous, and the expectation subversion is funny. I always appreciate when a writer strives to do something different with their protagonists, and as much as I genuinely love visual novels, I have noticed that the main characters tend to be very generic. And I wish interesting dynamic protagonists were more common than they are. I don't think it's a coincidence that many of my favorite visual novels tend to feature main characters who are given as much care as the love interests. Definitely thought that was worth mentioning. Now, the dragon is basically a complete foil to the protagonist. She's confident, passionate, mischievous, and wears her heart on her sleeve. She takes a very domineering role in the relationship, and she's all around a very fun character. There are three things about her that I feel make her compelling. Firstly, her manic personality makes literally every single moment exciting because she knows what she wants and she's damn well gonna take it. When she wants to eat someone, she just fucking goes ham. When she develops an interest in the protagonist, she's basically all like, we're fucking right now. And even once she and the protagonist settle into their relationship, she's dragging him along to experience things together. It's like her very presence keeps the story moving, and it's hard to explain, but the progression of the relationship seems much more active than it does in other romance stories. You really have to experience it to understand it. The second thing is her incredible chemistry with the protagonist. Now, Dra Koi doesn't really go all that deep into the character since it's mostly just meant to feed into the overarching themes of the story. But even though these two aren't the most well-explored characters out there, they play off each other exceptionally well. They have this back and forth from their first interaction all the way to the true ending. During their first intimate encounter, she's relentlessly teasing while he tells her to unalive herself like 3 or 4 times throughout the course of the scene. She gets super excited about things and boldly declares her love for him while he shoots back with his cynical assholery. These two have this ever-present banter, and I'd honestly say that their overall chemistry rivals that of Rance and Syl from the Rance series, which is really saying something. And the third thing is one that I can't fully explain without spoilers, but the main themes of the story are conveyed through her. She embodies the philosophy behind the storytelling of myth and legend. She believes in the beauty of these stories and what they represent to all the world's inhabitants. Every smile, every tear, all the love, all the heartbreak, every piece of the epic tale is something she desires and something she relishes. She loves and values her place in the story, and it was through her words and actions that I really began to actually click with what Dra Koi was trying to do. I know I can't really explain it to you, but it's truly something special. Fucking read this visual novel. The last thing I want to leave you with is actually a side character, the protagonist's mother, who I'm just going to call the General since that's her job. I went on and on about these great character dynamics and the incredible way this story acts as a love letter to epic literature, but I can't properly sell Dra Koi without pointing out that it's actually really funny as well. As much as it does tell this larger-than-life story, it also dedicates quite a lot of time to comedy, and the General is where it leans into absolute absurdist territory. Her sprite is in a more chibi-esque art style, and visually, she's basically a lolly. She's also a temperamental alcoholic who sucks at her job, and she really wants to fuck her son. This is not implied, this is explicitly stated in pretty much every scene she's in. She's also very jealous of the dragon because of this. Her scenes are pure fucking chaos, and I absolutely love it. She is a phenomenal comic relief character. A total balls-to-the-wall nutcase of a side character seems like it shouldn't fit in such a deep story, but it just works, and I can hardly explain it. Before I leave you, I want you to indulge me in a little thought exercise. Think back to a story of good versus evil that really grabbed you, brought you along on an adventure filled with heroism and excitement. It could be a book, movie, visual novel, or anything else. Maybe it was something you experienced as a child. Think about what made that story special to you. Think about the strong hero facing off against a powerful monster to save the day. What is it about that story that compels you? Why do we love these tales of heroes and villains? Think about the power and beauty that comes from such a simple, satisfying narrative. That is what Dra Koi wants to share with you. I would truly love to talk about it, to go in depth on how it manages to do that, but that would be impossible without spoiling the very essence of what it's going for. And I can't in good conscience do that to you, since I know that most of you, or at least most of the 100 to 200 of you who will be watching this video on release, won't have read it. So in conclusion, read Dra Koi. It is easily the best short story and visual novel format that I've read, and you can get through it in just a couple of hours. Incredible themes, great characters, and an amazing soundtrack. What more could you ask for? So please, do yourself a favor and read Dra Koi. The original fandisc that contains Dra Koi is a bit hard to come across since it's a 16-year-old physical release and it's out of stock pretty much everywhere. Now, I'm a good law-abiding citizen, so I would never ever encourage you to engage in digital piracy. But I can say that on a philosophical level, since the fandisc is no longer in active distribution, I can't say there's anything morally wrong with doing so, as there's no victim. But of course, even if I was some despicable fiend who would encourage piracy, I would not be allowed to direct you to any website that contains pirated material. So if you're a good, law-abiding citizen like myself, and I'm sure you all are, click the pastebin link in the description. It'll help you make absolutely sure that you don't accidentally engage in the evils of digital piracy. Got it? And after you've successfully avoided engaging in digital piracy, get yourself a legal copy of Dra Koi and enjoy. Thanks for watching. Big thank you to my Patreon supporters, especially the God tier supporters Bulk Squat Thrust, Drago, Fatima, and Michael Rotolo. If you'd like to join them for nice perks such as your name in videos and early access, check out Patreon linked below. If you enjoyed, please do leave a like and subscribe for more content. It genuinely helps me as a creator. Follow me on Twitter to hear me bitch about whatever game I happen to be playing, and join the Discord server for some fun times. Once again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Play the electro swing.
Hit the road, Jack, and don't you come back no more.